So, good evening, everybody, because it is evening, trust me. Those of you on the other side of the world, if you wonder if the sun's going to rise tomorrow, trust me, it'll be fine. It will. It did. We have just under an hour, and when I agreed to do this session, we kind of titled it as The Dilemma of Competency 6, because we have a problem. We have a problem with coaching and we have a problem with Competency 6. Coaching, particularly the way we do it at the higher levels, we don't have language to adequately describe what we do, which is why we see a lot of us coming from different schools getting caught up in jargon and terminology. If I will try very hard to be very clear about my use of a word, and how I'm using it and what I mean. And it doesn't mean I'm right, it just means that's how I'm using it. This reflects on the other problem that we have, because Competency 6 is called listens actively. And I'm going to tell you, I don't want you to do that. I don't have a word to substitute. The phrase I use is listening with an empty mind. Because coaching is the process of making people think. And to do that, you have to create a subconscious to subconscious connection. You have to push the person you're coaching down into their subconscious. And how to do that, that's another long lecture. We'll do that another day. But equally, you have to listen from your subconscious. And when we talk about active listening, active sort of gets you engaged, gets your conscious awareness running. And you then start thinking. And the human body has a significant failure. Your ears and your mouth do not work at the same time. And equally, your internal mouth, when you're talking to yourself, when you're thinking, that shuts off your ears as well. So if you want to coach at the highest levels, you want to stop thinking. It's not your job to think. It's the client's job to think. Your job is to make them think. So let me just explain terminology. I'm going to talk about conscious awareness and the subconscious. In some circles, they talk conscious awareness, unconscious, subconscious. Unconscious meaning the bit of the brain that keeps the functions going. Keep breathing, keep the blood flowing, that kind of stuff. We're not worried about that. If any of that stops, you've got a bigger problem. So your conscious awareness is the stuff you are currently consciously aware of. And it varies person to person, brain structure to brain structure, but on average, we can handle 5 or 6 things in our conscious awareness at one time. Now, the simplest problem in life has more than 5 parameters. If talking about the subconscious, what I mean by the subconscious is, if you think computer terms, your subconscious is the massive mainframe, the quantum processor. And it's the database of your entire body of knowledge, all your experiences. Yeah. Now, if we accept that coaching is the process of making people think, then we can also say that innovation, creativity, problem solving are all the same thing. They are simply connecting previously unconnected data in your brain. So when you make somebody think, They connect previously unconnected data. They form a new neural pathway. So they have what they call an idea or a solution. And it's theirs because it's formed a neural pathway in their brain. One of the reasons that we're taught as coaches not to give solutions, give advice, because when you give advice, you're giving one data point. They don't own the data point. When we see managers, when we're first teaching them to stop being the problem solver to their people, so we teach them coaching skills. And we want them to stop solving the problems, because when you give advice and you give a solution, the individual goes off, maybe they try to do what you suggested, then it doesn't work, then they come back and say, hey, boss, didn't work, so now how? Whereas once you trigger thought, and interesting enough, it can be as simple as you slip up, you give somebody some advice, and they go, great, I'll go and do that. Before they leave the room, you do your Steve Jobs bit. You go, well, there's just one more thing. I have a question. Given that what I've just told you was something I did in a different situation at a different time, how will you make that work in your situation? So no matter how badly you mess up and you end up giving somebody advice, you do that one thing and they immediately have to start thinking. The minute they start thinking, they're taking the idea, they're turning it into a neural pathway, which means they own it. So, you know, even as coaches, we can mess up and it's okay. We can still get by. What I want you to do, though, is think of it as this listening from the subconscious. So let's just chat. I'm actually going in this session, I'm going to give you a physical experience of something. So what I was thinking we might do is I'll tell you some stuff, then I'll see what questions you've got, and then we'll give you a physical experience of something so that you can play with it and take away something you can really do. Do we at this point, have any of you come into this session with questions about competency 6, about listening? You can raise your hand, you can put it in the chat.
May I share something here?
Yes, Monica.
At the beginning, you said you felt that listens actively maybe was not quite appropriate. What I'm sensing here, I'm not sure what you think, what the other rest of the coaches here think. I see it as perceiving more than listening actively, perception that might be linked to competence 5, presence, because we use all the senses. So more than listening, maybe would be like perceiving the what at the beginning in order to go to the who. I'm not sure.
Okay, I like that. And I would actually just change it slightly to say maybe not perceiving, but receiving. So here's my belief. You don't have to worry about all the 8 competencies. If you learn to do number 6 correctly, and then once you start the coaching, you focus on competency 3. Competency 3 is not a couple of questions you ask at the beginning, it's the framework of the entire coaching conversation. You get those 2 nailed, 6 and 3, and the rest of them will take care of themselves. They will show up as a result of that. So one of the things I want to talk about today is how do you do that receiving? How do we listen, not just at the Newtonian physics, but at the quantum physics level? So coaching for me can happen at 2 levels, Newtonian physics, quantum physics. You can just use the words. You ask questions, you listen to words, you pick up on physical signals, muscular changes, eye movements, and stuff like that, right? That's the mechanical stuff. What we're interested in is the energetic connection. So I always say, if you learn to coach without models, you can get over the bar to MCC. But that's like getting your black belt. You've practiced the foundation, you've practiced the basics. But then once you've got your black belt, it's like, okay, there are multiple levels of mastery. And the levels of mastery depend on how much you can use energy as you go through that work. Murat, you have a question?
Not a question, but if I may, I'd like to contribute by indicating that the direction of the communication as well as the relationship should be towards starting from the coachee to coach. Therefore, while we are listening, we are not trying to understand, we shouldn't be trying to understand, we shouldn't be trying to analyze and so on, but we should be on top of that. We should be trying to help to the client. Therefore, we should be acting as a sounding board or a reflecting board to the client. Therefore, being not passive, but being open and being a tabula rasa or a clean sheet, it works better, I think.
Okay, yeah, I like that because you're absolutely right. The coach has nothing to do except what comes from the client. Yes. Warren, your hand was up next, I think.
Thank you. So you mentioned different levels of mastery.
Yeah.
Does that include active listening? So assuming if I have the ability to detach and connect subconscious to subconscious now as a recently graduated coach, can that competency, is that still a competency that in itself needs mastery?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll explain that. That's a very simple answer, wasn't it? But I'll explain it a little bit more. When we get into this, what I'm going to show you to do, it's because when you learn the empty-minded listening, it triggers the first piece of work at the energetic level. So I'll come back to that one in a moment and do. Chris, you've put in the, hi Lynn, good to see you. Chris, you said, how do you stop thinking while listening and keep the mind empty? That's the bit I thought would be fun for us to do. I'm going to physically take you through the experience of creating that mind state. So I'm going to kind of change your life forever today, if that's okay. Yeah. Alexander, your hand went up next as well as I saw it.
Yes, Tony, good day. Am I understood right? I don't like the term active listening. I prefer to one-way feeling of the client. It's a total perception of the client and his state. Am I right?
I think that's a good way of describing what I'm looking for. Yes. Yes. Yeah. So the fun bit is, over the years, I've done a lot of workshops all around the world. And at the time, some years ago, when Nokia, you remember Nokia, the guys who used to make phones? When they were building their factory in Chennai, they went from, I think, 9 people to 30,000 people in 3 years. So for a couple of years, I was going there almost every week, training the managers and just helping them because it was like being strapped to a rocket ship. Workshops in India are a lot more fun because there's a different level of knowledge. So I always used to say in the workshops very carefully, for the purposes of this workshop, you can only connect the data that's in your brain. So the process of making somebody think is connecting previously unconnected data in the brain. And as you do, we took a coffee break and you do coffee in, coffee out. And as we were in that room where the gentlemen go and do the coffee out, it's busy, so you don't get the alternates. Everybody has to fill up every available slot in the parking lot. And as we're standing there minding our own business, looking at the wall, the gentleman next to me said, I noticed you said, for the purposes of this workshop. I said, yes. He said, oh, good. So you understand then? And I said, yes. And the whole room just relaxed and smiled and went, okay, we can work with this guy. Because what I was referring to, what he picked up on, was the fact that all matter is made of energy. The entire universe is made of energy. I'm energy in one form, you're energy in another form, and the space between us is energy in another form. And if as say a Qigong practitioner does, if you can learn to move the energy flow within your body and then learn to release some of it, then we get into the quantum physics piece. So as Einstein said, E equals mc squared, which means the energy potential of a body is its mass times the speed of light squared. That's a big number. But if you can learn to release that energy, you can start to have an impact. Now, for me, the levels of mastery are the degree to which you can bring using energy into your coaching. And I don't care what level of years of training or experience or credential you've got, you can always learn mastery. I teach beginners mastery. Yeah, I mean, of course, I've got programs to help a PCC get to an MCC, but it doesn't matter where you're starting from, you can learn this stuff. So what kind of happens? Okay, so to make sure I'm being clear about what I'm saying, if you imagine dropping a pebble into water, you see ripples. Now, the ripples is not the water moving. If you put a rubber duck on it, it would bob up and down. What we're seeing, because the water is visible on a wavelength to us, is we're seeing the energy move through the water. Everything is made of energy and everything resonates. Now, you'll have seen sometimes, you ever had a client who's had an emotional experience and cried during a coaching session? I've had that quite a lot. And one of the things we have to recognize, because a lot of new coaches tend to panic about this, like, what if they cry? You have to recognize that they're not upset. They are simply experiencing a physical manifestation of the emotional content of the neural pathway that they are currently accessing. Do you want me to say that one again? They're experiencing a physical manifestation of the emotional content of the neural pathway they are accessing. And understanding that is important, because when coaches say, like, what do I do in a coaching session if somebody cries? The answer is absolutely nothing. Yeah, on the table behind me, between the two armchairs, there's nothing on that coffee table except a box of tissues. The only permissible thing to do is just nudge the box of tissues across the table. I also suggest gently take away the eye contact, because oddly enough, adults have learned nothing since we were children. Remember when the 2-year-old first discovers that if they cover their eyes up, you can't see them, and they start playing peekaboo with you? Well, we still think that when we're adults. So as long as you take the eye contact away, they feel safe, they feel that they're okay. And they'll come back to you when they're ready. One of the really interesting things is, if you've got, I remember I had a client who 10 minutes into every coaching session, she was a senior corporate exec, was heading up the finance aspect of a global merger of 2 big multinationals. Something was going on, and 10 minutes into every session, she just dissolved into floods of tears. And I was a lot less experienced in those days, but I figured some of this stuff out. And all you have to do is start speaking halfway through a sentence and take them to a different neural pathway. I'll give you an example. Does anybody remember 11 years ago watching the film Inception? If you haven't, homework tonight, go watch Inception. It's brilliant. So when I'm talking about the subconscious, I use the imagery of their three models, the three levels. So in the movie, they're taking people deeper into the subconscious, into their dream states. Now, research has proven that the deeper you go into the subconscious, the faster the processing, the thinking happens. So as a coach, that's why you want to get this subconscious to subconscious connection. So in the movie, the van goes off the bridge in real time. And 1 second in real time is an hour at level 1 of the subconscious, a day at level 2, a week at level 3. And those are not precise numbers, but it's a useful framework to think of. So what we're looking to do is get them and ourselves deeper down into our subconscious. Now, before I jump into the practicalities on that, Jesse, you had your hand up and you put it down because you thought I'd not noticed it, but I finally got there. What was the question?
Thanks to me, Tony, for noticing that. My question is, how do I know if I'm actively listening or my mind is empty or not? That's my question.
That's it. Okay, got it. So, hands up. How many of you have ever done meditation? Okay. So you'll know what I'm talking about. Now, meditation's hard. You know, my experience was you practice for, day in, day out for weeks, months, sometimes even years. And then one day it works. And your mind clears and you just float up into this beautiful space. And then a split second later, you just crash back down to earth. If you've successfully meditated, then you know the mind state I'm talking about. So this empty-minded listening, drop the active, this place to listen from, when you clear your conscious awareness, you listen from your subconscious. So everything the client is saying, all the signals, just go straight to your subconscious. So your subconscious will then produce the next question. When I go into a coaching session, I have no idea what I'm going to ask or where we're going to go. It all comes from the client. And your subconscious is the one that's making those connections. So what I thought about, so I got into coaching, 1984. IBM sent me on a leadership course as a young manager. And we were learning non-directive coaching for the first time using Galway's inner game. So we were learning to just coach tennis players. I thought it was fascinating. It worked. But when I said, guys, how does it help me manage people? The answer was, we have no idea. We're sports guys. So I went back to work, and being a techie, I went, okay, I'm going to try and figure this one out. The empty-minded state that you experience when you meditate is where you've got to get to. When you listen from there, something very magical happens. You start to pick up the energy signals. So here's the really fun thing. Remember I said people experience physical manifestations of the emotional content of the neural pathway they're accessing. That also happens at an energetic level. That is a physical manifestation. So for coaches, learning to do energy work, there are 3 levels. First one, as Alexander said, is learning to receive, learning to just pick up those invisible signals. So when you were asking in the chat there, it's like, how do you know, what's not being said? You're picking up the energy signals. So the first thing is to learn to receive the energy signals coming from the other person. The second one is learning to use the energy to connect with them. And the third one is learning to move the energy. Because thoughts are physical, not your mind, but your thoughts are physical. Your thoughts are electrochemical signals on the neural pathways in your brain. So if we accept that coaching, and therefore creativity, innovation, problem solving, is connecting the previously unconnected data, rewiring the neural pathways, anything that can help those vibrate and move will help them connect. So the third level, if you like, is learning to use that energy with the person you're coaching to help the process go faster and deeper. So what I thought I would do is give you the physical experience of the empty-minded state I'm talking about. Now, those of you who do a lot of meditation will probably do this exercise and go, yep, I know that state. I've been there before. That's where I go when I meditate. In which case, great. Those of you who've never experienced it before will experience it. And I'm going to take you there, and then I'm going to give you something to practice. Because the other thing I discovered over time, once I'd learned how to do this, it then occurred to me that our brains store every state we've ever experienced. So we know people talk about having trauma issues. Something happens, something triggers a flashback. So if somebody can trigger or be triggered to have a flashback to a previous mental state, it means that mental state has been stored. And if an external trigger can send you into the flashback, surely that means it's possible for you to do a conscious internal trigger. So that was the theory. So that's what I started playing with. And I discovered you can. So we need to create the mind state, practice it on a regular basis so that we get there faster and stay there longer. And then thirdly, be able to just trigger ourselves to go back to that mind state whenever we want to. Once you do that, you will then find you can start to do the energy work to get greater connections. This is listening. This is what we really want Competency 6 to be. So, are you all up for just doing something physical? Gently. Okay. Those of you who are not on video, if you are in a place where you can come on video, that will be great, because then I can just check that you're all doing it correctly. Because here's the interesting thing about this technique I'm going to show you. I guarantee it will work if you do it correctly. So if it doesn't work for you, you didn't do it correctly. Wish I had more products I could put that guarantee on, but this one works. So let me explain briefly the context. We are going to combine three things together. The first one is acupressure. So acupressure is like acupuncture, but without the needles. So we don't have to get the carpet dirty and covered in blood or anything like that. The way acupressure and acupuncture work is that you hit on the energy meridian points on the body. When you hit them, it creates a tiny piezoelectric current, and it smooths the flow of energy in the body. So we're going to do a simple physical technique of just pressing on some points. The second thing we're going to do is deep breathing, because really deep breathing is very, very relaxing. And then the third thing is visualization. Now, There is a tiny percentage of the world's population who have a condition that means they can't do visualization. There is also a slightly larger percentage of people who don't do it very often and therefore think they can't. Is there anybody in the room who's a little unsure if they can do visualization or not? Okay, let's tune ourselves in. I want you to all just follow my instructions and just see what happens for you. First, close your eyes. Now, in your mind, I want you to go outside your house or apartment or wherever you live and look at the door. See it as it is. Now take out whatever device you use to unlock the door. Unlock the door and push it open. Look into that first room and see it as it is. Look at the walls. Look at the floor. Look up at the ceiling. See it all as it actually is. Good. Now, come back to me and open your eyes and close the door for security. Okay, come back. So, could you see it? Yeah? Okay, so you can do visualization. We're in a good place. Now, the visualization I'm going to get you to do is you have to visualize something that is physically impossible. Why? Because when you visualize something that's physically impossible, you occupy the entire of your conscious awareness because it's hard work. I tell you, where I learned to do this, I thought I was a good student at school, but I wasn't. I drove the teachers nuts when I got into secondary school because I'm one of those people whose brain seems to only be able to learn stuff if I completely understand it. So I'm highly logical, highly analytical, and I take nothing. If somebody says, this is true, then I'm sorry, I'm going to have to stretch it, test it, and take it apart until I've either proved it's true to my satisfaction, or I've changed it, modified it, and I've got something better. So I'm a pretty irritating person, particularly to have in a classroom. And we were at a school where the teachers were not all academics. So it was a grammar school, so we have to play rugby and cricket, and we don't have a budget for a rugby coach. So they hire a broken down rugby player as the rugby coach and say, by the way, you need to do maths and science. So the teacher is typically in the classroom and they are one page in the textbook ahead of the kids. That's it. So you can just imagine we're there doing science and the teacher's talking about space, the solar system. And this is in the 60s. So we had colored posters on the wall in the classroom, and that was about as innovative then as giving them iPads now. It was mind-blowing. And there was this awesome picture of the solar system. So the teacher goes through, yeah, there's the sun and there's blah, 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 the planets and that's it. And I'm just blown away. I'm just visualizing this stuff and going like, wow. So the teacher tries to move on, and I'm going, sir, no, please. After the last one of the planets in the solar system, what comes next? He paused briefly and glanced at the textbook and went, well, it's space. And in my head, I could feel myself sort of zooming out and seeing this solar system surrounded by space. I'm like, wow. Sir, after the space, what's next? And now his teacher's getting a little bit annoyed, and he goes like, well, it's more solar systems. So I'm going, zoom. Oh my God. Solar systems, more solar systems. And he's now moving on to the next topic. And I'm going, but sir, after all the solar systems, what's next? No, guess what? The textbook doesn't go there. And he had no idea. So he throws the blackboard duster at my head and said, "It's the infinity of space, you stupid boy." And then he lost me for the day because I just sat there visualizing infinity. And I tell you, that's a hell of an exercise to do. And it's completely street legal. You ever want to really go somewhere, just sit down quietly and visualize infinity. As Douglas Adams said, it's big. It's really big. So we're going to visualize something a little easier than that. So I'm going to get you to identify the pressure points. We're going to press on them. We're going to breathe, and I'll count you through it. But as you breathe, I want you to ignore the reality that breath goes in through your nose, through your lungs and back. I want you to visualize and see the breath flowing into your body through your finger and then flowing out from your finger. Okay? So if you need to, I don't know whether you can sort of stick me up so that you can see me nice and clearly if my picture's big. If not, do whatever you need to do to be able to see me nice and big. The pressure points. The first one we're going to play with is at the beginning of your eyebrows, and there's one on each side. So I want you to just physically go find them. And if you press on them slightly, it might hurt a little bit. That just means you're in the right spot. So just go check it, test it, press it. Got it. Nice. Now slide round to the edge of the bone of your eye socket on the side. Right on the edge of the eye socket, not the squidgy bits, but right on the bone there, and press hard. That might hurt a little as well. Yeah. The third one is on the edge of the bone of your eye socket, right under the center of your eye. Just press there. The fourth one doesn't hurt. It's just here, single point, just under your nose on your upper lip. And the fifth one is here between your lip and your chin. That's it. So what we're going to do is take each of those points in turn. Now, you can go either side. You don't need to do both. And we're just going to go one point at a time. We're going to put pressure and breathe and see the breath. So let me talk you through it. Put the pressure on the first point. Now see that breath flowing in through your finger to a count of 3. Breathe in, 1, 2, 3, hold it. Breathe out, 2, 3. Now go to the point on the side of your eye. Apply the pressure, breathe to the finger, in and out. Now go under your eye. Pressure, breathe to the finger, in and out. Under your nose. Pressure, breathe to the finger, in and out. Under your chin, pressure, breathe to the finger, in and out. Okay, let that settle. Now, just go up into your head and just see what's going on. Let's get reactions from a few of you. Unmute yourselves. Warren, what's up there?
it out.
Sorry, I didn't
Sorry.
quite catch that. What I'm saying.
I said, I don't really know. I'm trying to figure it out. Yeah.
Is it quiet?
Yes. I'd say
Generally,
it's
you
quiet.
find it's quiet
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah.
Normally, we have stuff just kind of running around, and when you get this one, yeah, whatever you're saying, more relaxed, clean, stillness, empty, yeah, it's beautiful. This is, it's just an awesome way to be, right? Now, here's what happens. When you're in this empty-minded state, you can you truly listen to people. When you connect with somebody in this state of mind and listen to them from here, you will give them a communication experience like they have never had before. And what you find with when you're coaching, your clients will they'll just open up. You'll find that there's none of this establishing trust and all that. They will just open up and talk. And Monica, yes, end of session, never thought of doing it like that, but certainly you should, before you sit down with the client, you should do this. Now, I'm going to make a confession. I had great fun this year doing a whole series of coaching demos and lectures for different ICF chapters around the world during ICW. And I learned that I've been wrong about something for about 20 years. What I've been teaching all my corporate workshops for years was, okay, if we're in a 4-day workshop, great. I'll teach you this on day 1. And then we'll come back in about 3 days' time and I'll teach you the technique to practice. Because if we've already emptied your mind, no point teaching you the practice technique because it won't make any difference. And I was wrong. I had one group in May who said, well, could you just show us anyway? So I went, yes, okay, well, I'll show you anyway. And we did it and they all went, oh my God, that just took me so much deeper. So I was wrong, but now I'm right. So the physical technique you've done has created a mind state. You never need to do that again. Your brain stores every experience it has. So you can practice recalling that mind state at will. So for me, I walk into a room, whether it's an individual or a group, and I just go, okay, I just want to empty out, and I can, just like that. I don't have to do anything. With the intention, I just switch it. And when you're learning to work with energy, I've discovered that intention is the control panel for energy. Intention drives it completely. So you can just go into a situation and say, I have the intention to connect, and it'll happen. So let me just take you through the practice technique. You can do this one standing up or sitting down, doesn't matter. If you practice what I'm about to show you 3 times a day for 2 or 3 weeks, you will find in just that short period of time, you're going to get so good at this. So I presume most of you are sitting. So just in whatever way it means to you, put your feet flat on the floor and just bring yourself centered, whatever that means. And then become fully grounded. So feel the pressure of the floor into your feet, feel the chair pressing into your body. Okay, now eyes wide open, fully present. I'm going to get you to take a huge breath and then slowly let it out over about 8 seconds with the intention that that empty-minded state will either return or, in the case today, have the intention it will take you deeper. So all together, deep breath in, and now slowly start to release. As you do, just notice everything from your head starting to slide down and slip away. That empty space will become clearer and more focused. Okay, good. Feel free to unmute and just tell me what happened there. Did you get a slightly different experience? Did something additional happen?
This is Jesse. Actually, can I speak?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So we are. I was getting aware of various pains and sensations in my body when I did that.
Interesting. Anybody else?
Tony, it feels like calm, absolutely calm.
Yeah. Isn't it nice? Isn't it a beautiful place to be? So here's the nice thing. Two things happen. The more you practice this, the easier it is to get in that state and stay there. The other, even more interesting thing that happens, you see, when you're listening when you've cleared your conscious awareness and you're listening from your subconscious, the stuff that you need to get rid of has gone. You holding a judgment about the person you're with, holding an agenda or wanting to steer them in a certain direction. You can't do that because that's all conscious awareness stuff. So you practice being able to get into this state, you've nailed competency 6. Simply then focus on using competency 3 as the way you navigate through your flow of your coaching, and all the other competencies will happen. They will be demonstrated. Trust just emerges. The client just feels comfortable. The presence is there. This is the one thing to do that then creates that. Now, the other thing that's really interesting is, and I've just found this over the years by experimenting, is that learning to do this and listen from this place is what starts opening your ability to pick up the energy signals. So I think, was it Sjord you said earlier, is it that you can't learn to do the energy? Yes, you can. Anybody can. It's not easy, but you can learn. And then you'll find when you consistently, conscientiously practice it, suddenly one day it's going to happen. So I run, for example, I just started at the beginning of this year. Simplicity of Mastery is a program where we're teaching mastery, but rather than saying, wait till you've got your hours and then spend thousands of dollars on a big program, it's a low cost, asynchronous online learning of recorded lectures, and then depending on what level you're at, coming in for monthly webinars or bi-weekly tutorials where we practice the skills and we take the energy skills deeper. And we've got people who at the start, for the first 3 months, they keep reporting in each week and going, not getting it, not getting it. And we do the energy practice. And then suddenly one day they go, I felt something. And it's different for people. Some people feel something physical when they start getting the energy connection. Some people get a body experience. Some people see something. It comes up in pictures for them. And it's different for everyone. But gradually it starts to open. Alexander, you had a question.
No, it's not a question, just a remark. I think that everyone is doing it every day. when we meet in people, we always have unconscious opinion about the people, about the men or women around you. So I think it's the way of picking up an energy.
Yes, yes, exactly. It's about being, I suspect, if we went back enough years, this is possibly an ability that our ancestors had and used on a regular basis back in the early days. I think we've lost it over a few centuries. Monica, you had a question?
Yes, you are talking about energy, and before you were talking about non-directive coaching. And so if we are picking, the first step is picking or understanding, perceiving, receiving the client's energy. Just wondering here if we should ask permission for that.
No, because it's just coaching. So truly listening to somebody, listening from your subconscious, you're just listening. This is just a question of this is how to do it deeper. So the fact that you've engaged and agreed you are going to be doing coaching means you're going to do this stuff.
I'm sensing, correct me if I'm wrong, that you said that then we take the energy of the client and we, in a way, through the process, it's changed. So it's not like in the beginning.
And
it's not, part of the other.
No, you're not taking the energy of the client. We're all made of energy and we're connected anyway. Right? When they think about something intense, they project something energetically. That's happening anyway. All this is doing is saying you're just learning to pick up the signals. It's just the next level. So remember, very often when we first start learning this stuff, sort of coaching and skills, we don't notice, for example, that people's eyes move when they're thinking because they're accessing different parts of the brain. And then you go to a training course one day and somebody says, look for the eye movements, that'll help. Look for little muscular changes. I'm like, oh, okay. I now recognize the signals that were there anyway. This is no different. This is just saying, learn to recognize there is also an energy level signal happening and you be able to pick it up. Leona, you had a question?
Well, I have to break in there because it's almost 1 o'clock and
I was just looking at that and going, yeah, we're almost at time. We're going to be at time. So guys, thank you so much for coming out to play. Yes. One last question and then just we can close around and tell us how you've enjoyed yourselves. Leona.
Yeah, I just have a question about how is active listening in coaching different from that in psychology or CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy?
I am not trained in those disciplines to that level, so I'm probably not the best placed person to comment. From experience, I would say I suspect it's not very different at all. I've known psychologists and therapists who have also learned to tune in and listen at deeper levels like this. So I suspect it really, this should just become a human skill. If all of us listens to each other without judgments and agendas forming in our conscious awareness, the whole world gets a little bit better.
I agree.
So everybody, thank you very much for joining us today at the ICF Netherlands Accord chapter. So the next time we have a webinar is on the 3rd of October, and it's going to be at lunchtime, Amsterdam lunchtime again, and it's going to be about competence number 3. and Tom Ellis will be
Gosh.
here. Yeah.
I'm signing up for that. That's my favorite. Yes. Once you've nailed 6, 3's all there is to do. Oh, that's brilliant. And can I also say, if any of you want to know a little bit more about this and what I'm doing, just go to simplicityofmastery.com and you'll see what you need to know there. Yeah.
Did you want to give anything else, Tony? Is there another way people can connect to you? Maybe you can tell them about your YouTube channel. If
you want to get a flavor, you could go to profitableLeadership.com/first steps. And there's actually a 1-hour, 5-part online thing there, which carries a CCEU credit.